Rabia, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Thank you so much for having me.
September is coming up and many parents are going to be enrolling their children in school probably for the first time. And, for Muslim parents, there can be an added worry, right? They can worry that their child will be ostracized or othered or made to feel different or weird in the public school system. Do you think, Rabia, that public schools are doing enough to make the classroom experience inclusive?
I think that's a really good question. I think inclusion is definitely something that we're all working towards and talking about. And I think it's something that's in everybody's radar. So we are talking about it and we are thinking about how to really create identity-affirming classroom or school spaces. But I think there's always room to grow and to really ensure that all children's experiences are inclusive. So I would say that we are talking about it, having conversations. We are, working towards it. But just like anything else, there's always things that we can do to ensure that we are really working towards inclusion for all.
Who do you think is most responsible for making sure that the experience is inclusive? Is it teachers? Is it the board? Who is it?
Yeah, I think all stakeholders that impact students' lives and in the education system really have a role to play in creating an inclusive space and having our children experience an education system that respects and honors who they are. So I feel like all people, all stakeholders definitely have a role to play, whether that's the school board, superintendents, principals, and other administrators, educators. They have to go together to really create those outcomes.
Sometimes teachers might have an implicit bias, right? They might be in the classroom, but have a certain perception of what a kid could accomplish or just based on the child's appearance. And this is not something, that to say that the teacher is really bad or horrible, but we all have these implicit biases, right? Is there any sort of effort being made to try and overcome that?
That's a really good point that you've said. I think teachers are on the foreground of these experiences, and we have so many students in our classrooms and we all have biases. And I think that's step one, to know that regardless of how, equitable, anti-racist, inclusive, we strive to be, we still have biases and we still have to work towards, being conscious and then working towards dismantling them. So, I think this work, when we're working towards inclusion and equity, it has to start with the self. So, I have to be aware of my biases, where my privilege is. And as an educator, I have responsibility and I have positional power. So if I'm trying to create a learning environment that's inclusive, I have to start with myself and really consider, who am I and how do I come to this work? Where are my biases? What do I know about this family? Where are my assumptions? Where are my stereotypes? And how am I using my positional power to really counter and to disrupt those ideas? So, as educators, we have a responsibility to do this work ourselves first, because it has impact on the children who are in front of us. So, teachers are on the foreground, and it's very important that we engage in constant critical self-reflection, because it impacts our pedagogy and our pedagogy then impacts the children who are in front of us.
So let's take an example, a Muslim child, for example. How would a teacher, or in fact, how would the whole school approach this child to make sure that this child feels included within the school environment? Yeah,
I think we have so many children of diverse identities in our classroom spaces. And I think we really have to strive towards building identity-affirming classroom spaces or school spaces. And I think it starts by, seeing all parts of our children. So whatever our children are bringing, as educators and people invested in children's lives in school, we have to, see all parts of our students' identities. We shouldn't be saying that, we want these type of students. We have to honor and respect the children that are in front of us. We can really do that by seeing them. We have to see their Muslim identity because that's part of who they are. We have to see their color because that's part of who they are. So I think, step one is to really see all parts of your student, recognize it, and then really think critically about how you're delivering the curriculum. Is the curriculum something that's, representing the lived experiences and identities of our students? Can they see themselves in the curriculum? So, I think all of those intentional actions are really important. And I think that can only happen by creating rapport and relationships with families, with the adults in the children's lives. If we really want to be allies as educators with our families, and if we're really striving to create inclusive spaces, parents and families are partners, right? We have to center them. We have to create space for them to, come into the school and be able to speak and not be fearful and not be like undermined for the concerns and the experiences that they're bringing forward. So I think it's multi-stepped and it involves all stakeholders, and really the root is recognizing identity and centering our identity and using the identity and lived experiences to then build and carry out our curriculum.
You mentioned the curriculum, and I'm thinking back to the curriculum that we went through, and we didn't know anything about the Indigenous residential schools that were happening all over Canada, and now we're discovering that there are all these mass graves. Do you think that the curriculum is being modernized enough in this time to be able to reflect our real lived experiences in Canada?
Yeah, I think the curriculum is really a very important tool to really engage in inclusive and equitable learning. And as you're talking about this, we never really learned the truth about our lands. We never really learned our role as settlers. We never really learned how to be allies with communities.
It was a very happy-go-lucky kind of story of progress, right?
And multiculturalism, right? And neutrality. And I think it really comes back to this idea of what we think of our children. Oftentimes we feel like we need to shield them, or we think that they're neutral beings. But to really get to your curriculum question, I think we have to think critically about the role of children, or our perception of children and childhood. Children are not neutral. They're part of the world. They have lived experiences. Some of them might be experiencing these tough situations themselves, and some of them might not be. But all children need space to sort of make sense of their experiences, as well as learn about those experiences that are different than them. So I really feel like curriculum has to be inclusive, and the only way to do that is by centering stories that show a broad range of perspectives, and that shows the entire picture. Because I feel like in my own experience, I learned like disjointed information from here and there, and it never really made sense. Like, we would learn one aspect, but we didn't really know how it connected to other stories and other perspectives. And so when we consider curriculum, it has to be something that is, relevant, responsive, and it has to reflect and represent the students that are in front of us. And, we talk about this idea of curriculum being responsive. So, as we are unfortunately learning about all of these Indigenous children that were killed and lost their lives, it has to be responsive. So we have to bring these conversations in. There's so much Islamophobia happening. There's so much anti-Black racism, anti-Asian racism. It has to be something that's responsive in the curriculum. And it's going to look different in kindergarten. It's going to look different in grade 6. It's going to look different in high school. But this is where the curriculum is at. It has to be responsive. If we think education is a way to move forward in terms of inclusion and to really create that social change, we have to center our children. And we can only do that by helping them be critical and really become critically conscious about things that are happening in their world, and then help them think about what their role is to create an inclusive society and community. And I think that's really what curriculum is. It has to be responsive.
Rabia, what about bullying or conflict among students that has racist undertones? Is there any effort being made to do anything about that?
Yeah, I think that there is effort being made to handle and solve and model how these situations should be rectified. Of course, there's always things that can be done more to really create those identity-affirming spaces and to really restore the harm. And I think it really goes back to, that bullying incident really speaks to a collective situation that's happening. So I feel like it's not really removed from what's happening in the outside world. So if all of these, tough things are happening in the outside world, and if we want to restore and really, fix these situations, it has to start by helping our students make sense of what's happening. And to really show that like school and the outside world are not two separate things. And, we can't really put our heads down and, just say like focus on school. We can't really do that because the lived experiences of our children are, intersectional, and they impact every part of their life. So if we are thinking about like racist bullying, it's coming from, it's coming from a society that is racist, and I think it's coming from a society that is working to be anti-racist. And so if as a society and if in a collective way we are working to be anti-racist, inclusive, equitable, then the same has to be in schools, right? Like school cannot be removed from those really real things. And so, that bullying incident might be seen as like a singular individual way, but it has ramifications, and it's coming from somewhere. And so to really restore that, there has to be a holistic approach where we're really getting our children to be critical. I think, it starts by really building those identity-affirming spaces so that we can really build that respect, that inclusion, that understanding, and help us see each other's humanity and dignity. But it also starts by, helping our children be critically conscious. So to really understand what's happening, and then to, think about their role in like creating change and rectifying this racism and, those tough things that are happening. So there has to be individual change, but there also has to be collective change, and they have to work together to really, really rectify, even if that's like that singular bullying case. It has to be like a collective effort, I think.
I feel like I could talk to you forever, Rabia. Thank you so much for joining me. And you'll have to come back because you have so much to say, and I feel like I could learn so much from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so nice to be here.
Oh, you're welcome.
If you enjoyed this video, click like and subscribe. And please donate to support our work at QuranSpeaks.com.